Welcome back. ChannelsTV.com has more information for you. And on YouTube.com/channelsweb, you can watch our videos. You can also watch us on your mobile device via your browser or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS, and Windows devices from their respective stores. Besides giving you access to news updates, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app have an eyewitness feature that you can use to share pictures, videos, or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and follow the instructions. In the Southwest, the Minister for Power Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, has flagged off the reconstruction of the Ikorodu-Sagamu road. According to the minister, the first priority of the government is to make sure roads are in good condition before the rains begin. He gave an assurance that the federal government will extend the renovation to other projects, including the Lagos-Ota-Abeokuta road, and will continue working on the Lagos-Ibadan expressway.
His first priority is to stabilize this road and make it motorable before the rains start. That's his first priority. But whilst he's doing that, some construction will also start. Now, let me be very, very clear again. You cannot have this kind of development in a fully built-up area like Ikorodu without some discomfort. So there will be some inconvenience while you use. Do you agree to bear with it? Those in favor of agreeing to bear with it, say aye. Those against, say nay. The answer is.
Now, the National Boundary Commission is responsible for defining and delimiting Nigeria's internal and external boundaries. Some of those responsibilities it has include to intervene and deal with any boundary dispute that may arise between Nigeria and any of our neighbors with a view to settling that dispute, as well as to determine and delimitate, boundaries between states, local governments, areas, or communities in the Federation and between Nigeria and her neighbors. In anticipation of these problems, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has tasked the Boundary Commission to re-engineer the nation's borders and border policies in order to appropriately deal with issues of boundary disputes, communal clashes, smuggling, and other issues. And now we are joined on the program by a senior lecturer of the Department of Geography, University of Lagos, Dr. Mayowa Fashola. Thank you for joining us on News Across Nigeria.
Thank you.
Now, boundary disputes, not a new problem, where communities on those boundaries have altercations, and it has continued over the years. Why is this still a problem?
Thank you very much. Boundary problem is one of those internal demons of security we have in this country. And it's everywhere from the north to the south. If it's not happening somewhere today, it's because there is still nothing to fight on. Land, water, oil, mineral resources, and so on and so forth. So, but you can also look at it from the historical perspective. The way we delineate our boundaries, typically follow some kind of fault lines, ethnic, religious, tribal, and so on and so forth. For example, if you look at our internal boundaries, I look at the local government, a map of the local government for the entire Nigeria, you will see how contorted some of these local governments look. So you wonder how on earth we get those kind of boundaries. So in essence, right from the onset, when boundaries were delineated, key issues about geography, about economy, about space were never considered. And if you compare our boundaries with boundaries in some of the developed world, you will discover that for some of those countries, we could actually put 4 coordinates on the boundary. And it's going to give you the boundary. But here, our boundary follows all those fault lines, ethnic, religious, and so on and so forth. And so they become very contorted and it's very difficult to manage. However, that's what we have. So We just have to manage them.
Speaking of managing it, how about security-wise now? You heard recently from the federal government about allegations of people, marauders, coming in from over the boundaries and masquerading as herdsmen.
Oh, yes.
So how can one realistically police our boundaries?
Well, maybe we make a distinction here between the local boundary, internal boundaries, and the international boundaries. They are not the same, and so the challenges and peculiarities are not the same. If you look at the international boundaries, for example, we've not really been having much problem in terms of clashes, except maybe around the Cameroon area. Benin Republic, and then the border in the north has, maybe there is probably nothing to struggle for. But of course, the new dimension of people coming in, especially from the northern border, is a very difficult thing. The key issue is that boundaries, for example, if you look at northern Nigeria, we have a very long boundary, over 1,000 kilometers. And if you could actually pinpoint how many of the border posts or how many of the border crossings are manned. And remember, those places are savannah. So everywhere. So
basically, anyone can come over the boundaries internationally.
Means, exactly. So we will probably have to employ more technology.
The funding for that will be a gargantuan.
The funding for that, it has to, the federal government, because national security is the primordial role of the federal government. And so one way or the other, the federal government will have to look for the fund, to be able to do that. But if you look at the local boundaries, especially between communities, that causes all this clash. Like I said, it has some kind of historical dimension. But we just can't throw everything to the National Boundary Commission, because if you look at the act that set up the commission, it's also stipulated the setting up of the state boundary committee and the local government boundary committee. So you keep wondering each time that.
Are those operational?
Oh, yeah, I don't know, but they are supposed to
be operational.
Yes, and that's what government has to look at. Because each time there's a class somewhere, the people start looking to the federal government, everybody keeps shouting, government should come, federal government should come. Even the state government will tell the federal government. It shouldn't be that way. The local government is supposed to be able to manage at the community level. Then if it's out of hand and they can't handle it, it goes to the state level and then to the federal. That, the limitation has to be there. How
much power do you think the Boundary Commission has to take a second look at the boundary disputes internally, as was called for by the federal government yesterday? Well, Professor Osinbajo.
I don't know how much power they have. It depends. But Professor Osinbajo is the vice president, is the chairman of the National Boundary Commission. So so they should have the power. They should have the executive power to be able to mobilize the government and so on and so forth to be able to do that. Another thing I have to
finally, sorry to interrupt you. There's concerns about smuggling at the border, an issue that the vice president raised. How can this be curtailed? Again, I think it goes back to manpower.
I think it does. But all over the world, boundary area, especially international boundary area, is always a very big economic area. For example, if you look at our boundary with Benin Republic, it's one of the most active, just like you have between U.S. and Mexico. So that one can be curtailed. Maybe we need more power and so on and so forth, but you may never be able to completely, eliminate that. Another thing I want to say finally is about our land management. We have to look again at our land management, because if you cannot even delineate, where person's property begins and ends.
In a neighborhood.
In a neighborhood. How much more are we going to talk? That is exactly the issue.
A thought for us to ponder.
That's the issue.
And we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your expertise on the issue, sir.
Thank you very much.
A senior lecturer from the Department of Geography, University of Lagos, Dr. Mayowa Fashola. You're watching news across Nigeria. Coming up, the federal government commissions projects to control flooding in Osun State. Please stay with us.